Well, we're at the Giant's Grave Neolithic tomb, which is on the Rins of Islay, just below the summit of Beinn Tart mill. This is a Neolithic burial tomb, dating to, we think, around 5,000 years ago. And our excavations here are part of a project that Islay Heritage has been running for a number of years, looking at the earliest prehistoric settlement on the Isle of Islay. Now that began 12,500 years ago with Ice Age explorers coming to the island when this was all covered in tundra. After that, as woodlands spread during the early Holocene, Mesolithic hunter-gatherers lived throughout Islay, indeed throughout the islands, hunting deer, wild boar, fishing. And then around 5,000 years ago, or maybe a bit earlier, about 6,000, we have a totally new type of archaeology appears, which is the start of the Neolithic in this part of the world. Now the Neolithic originated in the Near East, and gradually that farming lifestyle spread across Europe into Britain and arrived in Scotland perhaps around 6,000 years ago, and is marked by the appearance of burial tombs such as the Giant's Grave here. It's the first time anybody marked the landscape. The Mesolithic people didn't. They made their campsites, they made tools out of flint cobbles, out of antler and bone, then they moved off to another campsite, and there's no trace of them left on the surface. But the Neolithic people marked the landscape. It might be about claiming territory by burying their ancestors there, or it might be about making meeting places or ceremonial places. The Giant's Grave is one of 6 Neolithic tombs on the Isle of Islay. It's never been excavated in modern times, and as you can see nowadays it's surrounded with this plantation. Going back to the 70s, it was on a open hillside, and probably in the Neolithic it was surrounded by a scrubby woodland. What we're doing is trying to identify the date at which it was first constructed. The tomb we're seeing at the moment is probably a later phase of it, and we think by excavating below the current architecture we might find traces of an earlier tomb. And what I want to discover is whether there is then a Mesolithic site below that. Because although we get this transition from the hunting and gathering Mesolithic people to the farming Neolithic people, it's not clear whether that was entirely a new population coming in, or whether the Mesolithic people adopted that Neolithic lifestyle. They entirely changed their culture and their way of life. So we want to excavate down to see whether there's Mesolithic deposits below it, get charcoal for radiocarbon dating, but also to look at the architecture of this tomb. Because at the moment you just see the tops of the stones sticking out from the peat, and the peat is probably a metre deep. I think this is one of the most massive tombs built in the Neolithic on Islay, and we want to reconstruct its entire architecture, the number of burial compartments, the facade. That will take us 2 seasons of excavation, and that will add to the picture of the early prehistoric settlement that will gradually building up on this island.